Today I'm going to be taking a look at Haiku. Haiku is an open source operating system. It targets personal computing. It's not a server operating system. It is a re-implementation of the old B operating system, BeOS, from way back in the 90s. Haiku is super fast, and it is quite attractive in a retro sort of way. So let's get started. So, what is Haiku OS? Let's go to their website. Their official website, is haiku-os.org. Reading the blurb at the top of the page, Haiku is an open source operating system specifically targeting personal computing, inspired by BeOS. Haiku's fast, simple to use, easy to learn, and yet very powerful. Neat little marketing blurb there at the top of the page. For a little more info, let's go to their About tab here. What is Haiku? It is an open source operating system currently in development, and that is very important. I am reviewing Haiku OS Beta 1. This is their very first beta. It was just released a month or two ago, Beta 1. It had been in alpha for nearly 2 decades. Haiku OS has been in development since the early 2000s. I want to say development first began in 2001. And I have taken a look at Haiku a few times, never on the YouTube channel here, but I've taken a look at Haiku over the years in the various alpha stages. And people have been asking me for a long time, when are you going to review Haiku OS? And also, a lot of you guys have been asking me, when am I going to review React OS on the channel? 2 very different operating systems. Haiku OS is basically BeOS modernized. React OS is basically like Windows 98, Windows 2000. And both of them have been in development for nearly 20 years. Both of them were in alpha stages forever. Haiku just had its first beta. React OS is still in alpha. I'm not that interested in React OS because I don't need to run Windows 98 or Windows 2000 programs. Haiku OS is much more interesting to me. It is 100% compatible with BeOS, but I don't think very few people that run Haiku OS are going to try to run like BeOS software like from back in the 90s on Haiku OS. Haiku OS is more interesting because I think it serves a place now here in 2018 and beyond. Some of the highlights of why Haiku is a really neat operating system: specific focus on personal computing, so it's not a server operating system. Custom kernel designed for responsiveness. Haiku OS is extremely fast. You will be amazed at how fast the system boots up, how fast applications open and close, etc. Fully threaded design for great efficiency with multi-processor core CPUs. That is probably the biggest feature of it. Fully threaded design for your multi-processor and multi-core CPUs. Rich object-oriented API for faster development, unified cohesive interface, etc., etc. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this inside VirtualBox. For those of you that want to try Haiku OS in a virtual machine in VirtualBox, for OS, you need to choose Other. This is not Linux. This is not a Linux distro. It's not BSD either. This is its own unique operating system. So for OS type, you need to choose Other, Unknown. I'm going to go ahead and launch Haiku OS Beta 1 here in a VM. Really neat little splash screen there. And boot up time is very fast here. VirtualBox needs to capture my mouse and keyboard here. There are no VirtualBox guest editions for Haiku. It's in its experimental stages. Don't bother trying to install any guest editions. Even if you could get them installed, they wouldn't function correctly. It doesn't have all the extra goodies, as far as, what you expect to have with guest editions. But this is mainly just for testing out Haiku. Now, Haiku OS does work really well on physical hardware. There are many people that are running Haiku on their desktops and laptops. Wi-Fi works. So if you want to try Haiku on physical hardware and you got an extra drive or extra machines that you like to hop around on, definitely feel free to put this on physical hardware. It'll work just fine on physical hardware. Right, this is the installer. The installer, for those that want to run through the installer, you click Run Installer, and basically you have a partitioner, kind of something similar to gparted, where you create a partition, of course, to install the system to, and that's basically it. The installer, there's not much to it. I'm just going to review the live desktop here, so I'm just going to click boot desktop. And we're just going to take a look at the live environment here. And this is Haiku. Haiku in its gloriousness. This is very old school, very retro, really attractive. Actually, I kind of like the blue gradient background on the desktop. I like the old school kind of isometric icon sets. I mean, it's a really attractive desktop. Now, what do you do here in a Haiku? Well, of course, you've got some icons on the desktop. You do have a right-click menu, and of course, you have your application menu also at the top right. This is where we're going to start here with Haiku. So I'm going to click the little feather, and let's go to Applications. Let's see what is installed by default here on Haiku OS. So we have our activity monitor. So this is basically your system monitor. So right now we're using about 376 megs of RAM, cached RAM, 912 megs, CPU, fluctuating a bit, but it's using about 20% or so of the 2 cores of my 6-core CPU I gave this VM. Go back to the top of the menu here, back to Applications. We have a PDF viewer, we have a character map, CodeCam, so this would be our webcam application. If I wanted to test out my webcam, I can't test out my webcam. It's a USB device anyway. Without the VirtualBox guest editions, it would be tough to do this in a virtual machine. Also, my webcam is being taken up right now in OBS to record this video, so even if the guest editions did work, I couldn't use CodeCam. On physical hardware, though, I'm sure that would work just fine. We have a debugger. We have Desk Calc for our calculator. Wonder if it has a scientific mode. Looks very simple. Is there any other options to it? That makes it bigger. And of course the close button is on the left, but I didn't see options for like scientific mode or anything like that. It seemed like a very simple calculator. Of devices. Of course this is going to be all your ACPI controllers, etc. Something neat to have on the system, no doubt. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. Actually a lot of applications. Now these are kind of small applications. These are not like big suites of multimedia applications and stuff like that that you would traditionally see in a lot of operating systems. These are more like system administration sort of things, like disk probe, disk usage. Let's see what disk usage is. Oh, I guess I'd have to do a scan of the system to see what that is. Not going to bother doing that. Not sure how that would work here in a VM. All right, Expander here. What is Expander? Does it have any kind of about information like you see in a lot of Linux programs? No, it just has file, settings, no about information, but looking at it with the name Expander and then you see source, destination, expand, show contents. What this is going to be is a unzip utility, right? It's going to be for decompressing compressed formats like zip, gz, tar, So I'm going to close the Expander here. Also under applications, probably the most important application to check out is the Haiku Depot. The Haiku Depot is our software center. So, what software is available in Haiku? Well, a lot of the software you're used to in Linux, of course, is not going to be available in Haiku because Haiku is not Linux. It is, again, derived from BeOS. So a lot of our familiar Linux applications are not going to be here. But they have made some strides. Some bigger applications have been ported over to Haiku recently. The biggest one by far is LibreOffice is actually in here. If you type LibreOffice here, tick off show only featured applications. See, I know LibreOffice is available if I typed it right. Can you please show me LibreOffice? Maybe I don't need to do any kind of capitalization. Wonder why it's not showing. Maybe I need to like update the repos or something. Maybe there's something. Let's see. All repositories, Haiku, refresh repositories. Yeah, let's refresh the repositories. Because I know LibreOffice is in the Haiku repos. I mean, I got that straight from their official website, the Haiku website. Because it was big news. LibreOffice, right here. We wanted to install it. It's probably a big install, so I won't bother installing it here on camera in a live environment anyway, because it won't stick, when we close this VM later, I'll lose LibreOffice. I didn't do a real install. But there's LibreOffice, so that is big. Also, I can go ahead and tell you that a lot of the KDE applications are also here. Now, the KDE Plasma desktop environment, of course, isn't here. The desktop environment is the Haiku OS desktop environment. That's what you're using. But there are a lot of K applications on the system. If I do a quick scroll through this very long list of everything that's on the system, I eventually get to all the applications that start with a K. You will see a lot of the familiar KDE applications. You scroll down, things like kconfig, kate, karchive, various KDE libraries, kdoc tools, knotify, Krita. Krita, that is very interesting that Krita is here. So we do have an image editor. Is GIMP on Haiku? I don't think it is. I know it wasn't the last time I tried Haiku out a couple of years ago. That's kind of a deal breaker for me, not having an image editor for what I do, you know, as far as this YouTube channel. But the fact that Krita is here, Krita is a pretty acceptable alternative to GIMP. So there is that. LibreOffice is here. I can also tell you that Blender has recently been ported over. So Blender is available for, you know, open source 3D creation suite for doing animations and whatnot. For video editing, for example, what I do, I would need, I use Kdenlive. I mentioned a lot of the KDE apps are here. Kdenlive is not here. If I do a search for video editor, I'm assuming it's going to look for video editor in descriptions of apps. And yes, we do have OpenShot. OpenShot, I'm not a big fan of OpenShot, but it does work as far as being a free and open source video editor. I could use it. One thing that I could not do is I could not stream videos on YouTube, do a live stream, because something like OBS, for example, I know is not going to be here. Even if it was, it would probably have some problems running because of missing codecs, and you know, things like the NVENC encoder would probably not be available. Yeah, OBS does not look like it has been ported. I doubt we would see a port of something like OBS anytime soon, so that would be a deal breaker for a YouTube content creator like myself. I couldn't put Haiku on my main production machine and actually make videos from Haiku. Audio editing, something I do a lot. So Audacity is the standard free and open source audio editor. It's not here. If I did a search for just audio editor, are there any other options? Not really. So that is a bummer. How about multimedia applications in general, like multimedia audio players and whatnot? First of all, some things like the GStreamer framework is here. Handbrake is here for an encoder. How about music players? Music. Audacious is here. Audacious is a nice, fast, lightweight, minimal music player. Cantata is here. Again, makes sense. Cute application. Works well with the KDE suite of applications. CMuse is here for a terminal-based music player. Love CMuse. So they do have some nice music players available. The MPD, the music player daemon is here. All right, so some good stuff here. Let me close out of the Haiku Depot. Let me see if I can find a terminal. So if I go to applications, is there a terminal here that I could open up? There is, terminal. I will tell you that this does use the born again shell, the bash shell. So I don't know if a simple uname-r does anything here in Haiku. Yeah, it just returns 1. It doesn't return anything else. Uname-a, Haiku shredder 1. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is, well, I need to capture the mouse again. All right, I'm going to clear the screen. Since this is a bash shell, you know, all your standard bash commands should work. I will say that I know Haiku has its own package manager called PKGMAN, package manager, PKGMAN. So standard commands for PKGMAN would be update, to update the system. So it's going to check the repos here. And there's actually a few programs I could update. I'm going to decline the update though. That was just to show you how that worked. to install software or uninstall software, similar to how you apt install, apt uninstall, pkgman install. Yeah, for text editors, is Vim available? I know Nano is installed by default on the system. Vim is available. That's great. I'm going to decline that. Just quickly, is Emacs available? Since they did GNU/Nano, I would think that GNU Emacs would also be available. Yeah, so both Vim and Emacs are available on the system. You guys know I like a lot of these terminal-based applications. Is Ranger, the Ranger file manager, available? Ranger is available. This is really a win so far. I mean, I could almost live in Haiku with what is available as far as the graphical programs available and some of the terminal-based programs available. If it wasn't for something like OBS and Audacity, GIMP is kind of a deal breaker. Really, you could do almost everything you want to do as far as doing daily work and living in Haiku OS. What else should I try? pkgman install. How about terminal-based web browsers? You guys know I love Lynx, Lynx. The oldest web browser, still under active development. Is there a Haiku port? There is. Lynx is here. I'm going to decline the install. How about W3M for a terminal-based web browser? It is also in the repos. Wow. We already know for terminal-based music players, CMuse was here. How about NCMPCPP? Kind of a mouthful to say, but a really neat MPD music player. It is also here. I haven't really found too much that isn't here. How about for a system monitor program, how about HTOP? You guys know I love HTOP. No package found, name not found. So HTOP is not here, but that's fine. Haiku does something a little differently as far as a process viewer. I'm going to show you guys that here in just a second. Anything else I want to search for? Terminal-based email. I like NeoMut. Now that is kind of an odd program. Not too many people do terminal-based email. So it doesn't shock me that something like NeoMut isn't here. How about rTorrent for a terminal torrenting client? rTorrent is also not here. Okay, I'm going to close the terminal here. All right, I mentioned HTOP is not in the repos, but we really won't need it because Haiku OS has a really neat process viewer right here. Up under the application menu, you have these bars here. Click on that, and then you have thread and CPU usage for those that want to monitor CPU usage. We have memory usage for those that want to monitor the application's memory usage. We also, for the thread and CPU usage, you notice that it's almost got like a tree form. Those of you that are used to using like HTOP in the tree form where it shows the threads and then like the sub-threads, etc., etc., you have that except in this really neat menu form. And you could click on something. So if I wanted to, I guess, kill a process like this media server process, I'm not exactly sure what this is doing. I could click on it and it's going to ask me, what do I want to do? Cancel what I'm doing, debug this team, the media server team of processes, or kill this team, meaning make all these processes die. I'm not going to kill it because I don't know exactly what that's doing here in the VM. I don't want to just kill a random process, but really neat. So if you want to do some system monitoring, you really don't need an external application like HTOP or Glances or any of that. You have it all right here in the menu. Quit an application, memory usage, thread and CPU usage, the two processors we gave this machine. And this application is called the Process Controller. About Process Controller tells you a little bit about it. Dates back all the way to 1997. I guess it was probably one of the original BeOS applications. Also, next to the process viewer, we have network devices. Don't want to play with that. Then we have the volume control. All right, let's look through the menu. So under applications, things we haven't checked out. Magnify. This is an interesting program. It basically magnifies what is under my cursor. Like, look at the trash icon. I'm going to slowly move my icon over the trash icon. Interesting program. I'm not sure how useful it is, but I will say that's a pretty interesting program. We also have an email client here. I'm not exactly sure what the email client is. Does it give me any information? Settings, accounts. What is the name of this application? Well, the only label I have is mail in Haiku OS. I don't know if they're following the lead as far as, like, the GNOME devs love those generic names like files and mail and stuff, but all we have is mail. I'm not sure that is a BeOS email client or something more cross-platform or not. We have a media player. We didn't take a look at this earlier, but there is a music player installed by default. And we've already looked at the terminal. WebPositive is the default web browser. Now, back in the 90s, when BeOS first came on the scene, they had their own web browser called NetPositive. Haiku has something called WebPositive. Oh, I minimized it. Oh, by the way, when you minimize applications, they go over here into the tracker here. All the applications I open, if I open 1,000,000 applications, for example, if I open the file browser here, it would show up over here in the tracker if I start minimizing things. Anyway, not exactly sure how that works. I was trying to maximize the browser here, but I don't think maximizing the browser doesn't quite work the way you think. Double clicking on the top actually minimizes it rather than maximizes it. Oh well. Anyway, WebPositive is the browser. For most folks, WebPositive is not going to be a positive experience, pun intended. So you're probably going to look for other terminals to use on the system. I'm not sure what is available. If I open up the terminal again, pkgman install Firefox. Is there a Firefox port in Haiku OS? There is not. So Firefox is not available. I'm pretty sure Chromium is also not available. I think Cupzilla is available. Again, they like a lot of the KDE apps and a lot of the Qt apps. So Cupzilla is available. Cupzilla actually may be the best browser available on Haiku OS. So that's kind of unfortunate. By the way, you guys notice when I'm doing pkgman install and pkgman update, you notice I'm not invoking sudo. I'm not invoking the root user. Why? Because there is no root user. This is a single user system. Haiku OS, when you install it, it doesn't ask you to create a root password or create home user or anything. This is a one user system in the live environment, also when you install it. So you never have to invoke sudo. It only has one user on the system, and that user is always has root privileges. So that could be a good thing. Could be a bad thing. I'll let you decide on that. As always, I like to check out, backgrounds and icon sets and stuff like that on any Linux distros I review. Obviously, Haiku OS is not a Linux distro, but let's see if we can play around with the appearance a little bit. Under Preferences, we do have an Appearance application. But there's no graphical stuff, no wallpapers or anything. Everything is adjusting, playing around with the fonts, the font size, the font style, colors. Everything is solid colors here, so you can change the color of the background, the menus, etc. The panel text, the control background, link text, link cover. You can change pretty much all the colors of the system. Look and feel. Decorator is set to default. Anti-aliasing is on. So there's not too much you can do, but you can do a little bit playing around with the appearance of Haiku OS. So all in all, what are my thoughts on Haiku OS Beta 1? I like it. Surprisingly, I really like it. My complaint about Haiku has been development has been slow. It's got a small development team. I mean, these are people that are contributing time, free time, to work on Haiku OS, so development has been slow. It's been in alpha for nearly 20 years. We just got Beta 1. Who knows when we will ever get the first 1.0 release of Haiku? Maybe never. I mean, who knows? But it is an interesting project. Again, super fast. Even in the VM here, you guys install this on physical hardware, you will be blown away by how fast everything runs because of the multi-processing stuff that it does. It's just a lightweight operating system in general. Again, I mentioned it's attractive in a retro sort of way. It's an attractive operating system. And most of what you need to get done as far as working on a computer, you can do in Haiku OS. Again, I showed you all the terminal applications. Many of them that I use on Linux are available in Haiku. Things like LibreOffice and Blender, a lot of the KDE suite of apps were there, Krita was there. So you do have some ports of the Linux applications you're used to over on Haiku. Again, you can install this on physical hardware. It just works. Wi-Fi is pretty easy to set up. So for those of you that want to check out Haiku OS, yeah, I highly recommend it. Before I go, this show was made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, David, Leo, Rob, and Tony. They are my highest tiered supporters over on Patreon. They are the producers of the show. The show was also brought to you by all those ladies and gentlemen. You see all those names on the screen. They really help support this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting the channel. You will find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. Peace, guys.